avoided any romances or trysts at the gym his family owned, he had to admit that it was hard to refrain from. There were some gorgeous women who came here, mainly because it was so well known for sponsoring some of the top mixed martial arts athletes of the last decade. Rory's romance with Claire had flourished inside the walls of this gym, or at least the part Kane had seen when he walked in one morning to find them having a naked sleepover in the middle of an octagon. Despite their breaking Kane's cardinal rule, he had to admit the romance had turned out pretty well for his brother, and Kane loved Claire like a sister now. "What did she say her name was?" Rory's face was scrunched up as he stared at the screen of his phone. "I can't figure out what she added. I've got, hundreds of contacts in here." "Seriously?" Kane leaned over Rory's shoulder, looking at the contact list he was scrolling through. "You've got that many ladies on the hook you can't tell them apart, playa?" "Fuck you." A smirk lifted one corner of Rory's mouth as he shoved the phone back in his pocket. "Claire's the only girl for me. About time you started settling down too, you know." "Not a chance in hell." Kane laughed and shook his head, saying goodbye to his brother and walking toward the locker rooms to shower. He wasn't looking forward to the bridal shower tonight, but if there were some hot women there, he might be able to get through it. The blare of music could easily be heard in the night air outside O'Leary's pub as Kane pulled open one of the heavy doors and walked inside. The moment his eyes had adjusted to the bar's interior, he found himself in a place he barely recognized as the pub he'd been going to for years. Glimmering little lights hung from the ceiling, obscuring the old bar lanterns. Soft white fabric covered walls that were usually forest green with dark wood paneling, giving the place more of a gauzy boudoir appearance than a bar. The high tables surrounded by bar stools had been draped in shiny gold tablecloths adorned with elaborate centerpieces. What the fuck? His brothers must have rented out the entire place for the night. Thick red velvet rope strung between heavy brass posts created a barrier beyond which lay a dance floor that looked like it had been laid down just for the occasion. Well, that was something. He did love dancing, and he had already spied a number of beautiful women he'd love to whisper sweet nothings to on the dance floor. And, if he was lucky... "About time, killer." Kieran, using his twin's fighting name, smirked at Kane from a few feet away. It was like looking in a mirror, since Kieran was identical to him in almost every way, from their dark brown hair and blue eyes to broad shoulders and strong build. Kieran was somehow an inch or two taller than him, but Kane was still well over 6 feet and made up for it in muscle. Technically, Killer had been Kieran's name first, but Kane had stolen it from him while Kieran was incarcerated. It was a good name, and Kane had wanted it. He wasn't sorry. He always went after what he wanted. Although Kieran had initially been angry, he later forgave him, joking that Kane had more of a killer instinct anyway. Damn straight. "Hey, bro." Kane clasped his brother's hand as they bumped their shoulders together and gave each other a pat on the back. "Nice party." "That's all thanks to this lady over here." Kieran pulled away and wrapped an arm around the blue-eyed brunette sporting a large diamond on her ring finger. Kieran was recently released after having spent a couple of years in jail. He was now engaged to the beautiful Fiona and helping to raise her sweet special-needs sister. Kane had never seen his twin brother busier or happier. Kane was just glad to have him back, because those years apart had been the worst. Kieran wasn't just his brother, he was his best friend. Yet jail had changed all of that. He'd been released, then had immediately jumped into a serious relationship with an instant family. Now Kieran was still a huge part of his life, but it was different. These days, Kane saw Rory more often than he saw his own twin, which was odd because, technically, Kieran lived with him, even though he spent most of his nights with Fiona and sneaked out before her little sister woke up. "And thanks to Claire," Fiona added, smiling up at her fiancé. Kane gave her a hug next, wrapping her in his big arms like she'd been his sister his whole life. "Where's Shay tonight?" Kane asked, inquiring after Fiona's younger sister. Shay had autism spectrum disorder, and Fiona had become her legal guardian after their mother had been murdered. Both girls had completely stolen his heart over the last few months, and he'd do anything for them.